Hi, I'm Patti Robron, and this is Speaking Truth to Goodness, the podcast where we seek joy and purpose on a burning planet. Our conversations are informed by art, activism, and a recognition of humans' deep need for connection and affirmation. The current series we are in, with guest host Michaela McCormick, begins in episode 1. In this episode, we explore the profound way in which parenting has the potential to transform society within a generation. We discuss our need for struggle and struggle with the idea of knowing how to win without domination. Most of all, we seek to move toward a world where the goodness of our effort is culturally humble and moves beyond the needs of land-owning white men. We find hope in knowing that those younger than us may already be headed that way, that a new story is already being written. Here we are.
When I was a kid, I was 10, I went to a little funky fair event. It was a small town in Oklahoma. And for 10 cents, you could see 2 white bats, which turned out to be baseball bats painted white.
Oh, no.
Somewhat disappointing.
Yeah.
Sad, because bats are really cool.
A sucker born every minute.
And they knew it.
Everything is falling into place, including me. I just fell into place.
Yeah, you did that very well.
Wow.
We all need to learn how to fall artfully.
That's more profound than you probably intended. That's like, what's Rumi's thing is, and then falling. How do you discover freedom in falling? It's a great little poem I have somewhere.
Yeah, I'm a big Rumi fan too.
Did you happen to see the Bill Moyers series on poetry?
I don't think I
There's
did.
one whole episode that's Coleman Barks on Rumi.
Oh.
Now you're the background sound in recording. So can I call you later?
Oh, you're on the phone, honey?
No, we're recording a podcast, and you're now part of it, and we're going to keep this piece. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lorraine Shear.
Hi, Lorraine.
Like a very loud oh shit.
Kind of that. So I'm hanging up now.
So have fun. So sorry.
Bye.
to interrupt.
Bye.
Ready?
Absolutely.
All right.
So where were we?
Yeah.
There's a great photo book from maybe the 1970s of families all over the world. And the epigraph is, there is one child in the world, and her name is all children. And somehow, even back, 60 years, 50 years ago, it's like, yes, there's one child in the world. And every time we care for a child, we're caring for all children. And in my world, we will be required to do that. Yeah. Oh, no, I just love that image of how we treat our children and the world we create for them is such an easy vision to try to achieve. Mm-hmm. It's concrete. And actually, you could do it with children. I mean, in other words, it's not just an idea, but the degree to which we're really open to the energy of children, we are enriched and engage in a different way in trying to create the world we want, at least for me.
I have always thought that if parenting practices changed 100% in one generation, we could have an entirely different society.
Yeah.
You know, if it was possible to have kids grow up without some of the traumas that they experience in everyday life because of capitalism and patriarchy, of course, what would the world be like? I don't think we would recognize it, honestly.
I never wanted to have children.
No?
because I saw it as the ultimate responsibility, and I didn't think I could take it on. And as it's turned out, that was the right decision, because I've gone through so many changes. It would have been very difficult to take children through all of that. Yeah, I just think it is. Parenting is a key role in making the world we want.
And one that we undervalue so much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I leaped right into parenting and really screwed it up. It's on-the-job training, you realize.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful and beautiful, and I have an amazing family. But did I know what I was doing? No. Did I make some really big sort of errors? I did. Loving errors, but errors nonetheless. So I think women, to a certain extent, have a community of mothers that you, especially when you're pregnant, everyone responds to that. Men have none of that.
Right.
So there's no support group around parenting that I'm aware of. I mean, there could be pockets here, but so if we have been damaged in how we were raised, there's no way for us to easily step away from it because it's just what you know. And it's funny, when I was teaching in Africa, they said, if you are not conscious of what you're doing, you will teach the way you were taught.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's, yep. The way I tend to say that idea is that wounds that you have not healed yourself, you will pass on to your children.
Woof.
Mm-hmm.
Woof.
Woof.
Seriously. Ugh. Yeah, like hits in the gut.
But isn't it also true that the gifts that you were awarded growing up, you also pass on to your children?
Now that's a good thought.
It's like what I notice about children is that they see and understand about 10 times as much as parents give them credit for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that really what they're internalizing a lot is how you treat other people. So, I mean, I think my kids would say that they learned about how to treat people from watching how we treated people. So that message is much more powerful. So if your parents are mistreating people, that's a deep wound that would be difficult. It's difficult to unpack. So what I find interesting is we're talking about how to find joy and purpose on a burning planet, and we start with children. We start with something concrete, something real, not ideas about what things should be. Those will come too, but more about why it matters. And the fact that since each of us, to a greater or lesser extent, have control over how we are in the world with children and each other and across lines of difference and language and culture and gender. We have control over that. And if we took that power, we would move forward. Would it solve all the problems? No. But it would make it more possible, seems to me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
If nothing else, it would likely raise the level of resilience in kids, I think. And that alone is a pretty important skill to have, to be able to weather the storms that life will bring despite our best efforts.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. Someone a long time ago, like in the 60s, said that people who wish for their children that they be happy are fools. He said, what you should wish for is that they learn to live with pain gracefully.
Mm.
Yeah. I think we're shallow in our hopes for our children. It's to have a house or a fancy job or, no. So, close your ears. So Patti, as a parent, inspires me completely. I mean, the capacity that she has to be with her maniac, amazing, lovely tweeners, 12 and 14, is a work of art that I get to experience every time I go there. And it creates you. That process is so in other words, in the process of reaching out to other people and incorporating their worlds, we grow stronger. And it carries over. If you get in the habit of, for me, difference is delight. It's not danger. So I'm actually kind of wired to want to experience new people, new things, so I can grow and get those. I see it as a gift, and I have ever since I was in Africa, which was almost 60 years ago.
Yeah. I think I've chosen that too in my life, to seek out people who are different, not consciously, it wasn't a plan. It's just I was from very early on drawn to people who are different from me, and I've to my immense advantage, you know.
Yeah.
This is confirmation that that is something we all have in common. Yeah, because I find that I only have my one experience. You know? White lady in the places I've lived, that's all I know.
Yeah.
And I thought at some point I had this idea of, well, isn't that the exciting part of why we like being around other people, is we get to know another human story. So it's almost like we got to live more than one life, because we get these little windows into other lives people have lived. And it never made sense to me, the idea of, I only want people around me who are just like me, because that makes me comfortable. I would be so bored.
Unfortunately, that's how our society has been organized, for people to be around people like them, so that the theory is, wrongfully, that will minimize the chance of conflict and discord, that we'll all just be happy together. That's been BS for as long as I have known. But
do you think it was organized that way and intentionally to downplay conflict? Because my brain immediately goes to increase profits, but
yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's all there.
But another thing you can say is that the people who created this country on paper and organizationally were land-owning white men. That's who they invited to the conventions and to Congress and to business, and you know.
I mean, that's a good reminder.
So what that makes me think of is I've said for a long time, because of the dysfunction of government right now, that, you know, as you grow older, you always say it was better when I was a kid. I say, but it really was better as when I was a kid. And then someone said to me recently, if you were white.
Yeah.
And I thought, fuck. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
It's like, so it's very difficult to think outside your direct experience. I mean, I have lots of experience. I have lived in Africa for 3 years, and more experience with communities of color than most men of my generation. And yet, still, my default setting is privileged white male. I mean, that's, yeah. So how do we keep this discrepancy present always? I don't know that. I don't know how to do that.
Jerry, say more about what you mean by the term this discrepancy.
It's almost as if there are parallel universes going on at the same time in the United States. One is white privilege. Women get to draft behind male white privilege. And then there are all the other communities, the Indigenous people, my ancestors. And and they're bumping up against each other, but it's almost as if they're different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a true difficulty, and it takes energy and effort to even partially move across that difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think as a white male, it will never be easy for me to fully understand, and I'm smart enough to know that I can't, the experience of other people. I'm sensitive to it when I remember to be. I mean, when I'm alert. And then I just default to saying things were better when I was a kid, without saying, if you were white.
Yeah.
You know? So it's really difficult. It's like deprogramming, Patti.
Yeah.
We need to be deprogrammed.
Yes. I don't think we have any concept for what our programming was like. And I guess, how do I frame that? Well, I'm coming from very intentional programming, which I would call indoctrination, that was of a fundamentalist Christian nature. And so I've been trying to draw out these ideas of, since I can see rather well how the indoctrination worked in a church context, I'm trying to see how that same thing is being and has been enacted by our society as a whole, in some similar ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a little more. It's not as obvious because it's normal. I'm putting finger quotes on that. Right? When things are normalized, all of a sudden we have this problem where we lose our ability to see it clearly. Right?
Yeah, we don't notice it. It's like fish swimming in water. Right. Our culture, the dominant culture in our society, has its own story, which it has imposed in us from day one, from the day each of us have been born. And it doesn't have to be explicitly expressed now, and hasn't had to be for a long time, because it's ingrained in us to the point where we don't question it. You know, we just live it. That, you know,
Right.
And it takes a special effort, as you pointed to earlier, Jerry, to really pay attention
Absolutely.
to other people, to other cultures, to other identities.
Well, and that also connects back into the idea of our children, because it's pretty handy for those in power to make sure the current adults understand the rules of existence here. And they know that if that is fully enveloped or enmeshed with those people, they're just going to go ahead and propagate that to their kids. And it doesn't have to be quite as big of a campaign to keep control over the population with those things. Because the parents did it for them.
So in 1969, sort of, I was at UCLA, and the radical community was quite strong, and radical presence was quite strong on campus. So we negotiated to have an alternative, what's the word? Orientation. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. So the university would do its orientation, and then we, the outcast wild people, had our own to debunk what they'd just been told. Yeah, guess what? None of that was true. And I said the longest run-on sentence I have ever said, and I still remember it, which is, the university wants to make each and every one of you as much like each and every other one of you as is humanly possible, and to convince you that this narrow range of possibility is freedom. I don't know where that sentence came from, but it has stuck with me all these years. So it is that instead of treasuring difference, it becomes a negative value for the society, which it is, the dominant society, but it's trying to make people, and it's working. I mean, they are staying in their lanes. It seems to me, both emotionally, politically, everyone is somehow numb, so they're just in this channel. And they're not fully aware of it, don't necessarily want to be, and I think I feel personally lucky that I've had enough experiences to actually, even in a limited, incomplete way, see the world around me, care about it, and try to figure it out. So I feel really lucky. That I don't know how to change it makes me feel less lucky. It makes me feel frustrated, but not tantrum frustrated, just in my cells. I want every child to be loved and fed and cared for.
You said earlier, Jerry, that most people now are numb. And I think that's been true for a long time, but more and more people now are not numb. Right. And you can see that in the Black Lives Matter movement and the assertion of transgender rights and the fight to keep abortion legal and all those things. And they're being challenged by the people from the dominant culture. Right. They're trying to ban books in schools and keep kids from being taught about slavery and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is very troubling, and it's quite possible that they will win this fight again.
Do you think? Oh, I have been telling myself in great hope that this is the death knell of their ideologies, right? That they're scrambling so hard to keep it going now because they know the end is coming. I desperately want that to be true.
Yeah, and I think that's possible too, but there is no guarantee.
Yeah.
Because the dominant culture has asserted and won before. And we don't know how many tries it'll take for us to break through with this message of compassion and sustainability. And, we have an opportunity largely because the people from the dominant culture are trying to assert themselves. We wouldn't have these opportunities if they weren't scared enough about losing what they value as they are. So the conflict is necessary, and knowing how to, for those of us who are working for a liberated society, knowing how to win without dominating seems to be paramount now this time. I think every other social struggle for freedom and rights and compassion ended up being about asserting power over others. Yeah. And we have to find a way today to find and act on our agency without bludgeoning the people who disagree with us. That's very, very difficult, but we have a better chance this time than ever before.
That sounds like a key point to guide all of our concrete thoughts.
It's one of the things that occurs to me is it's not easy to figure out how to bridge generational differences, right? So I feel that in some ways, as an elder, which I actually am, our responsibility is to support and sustain the young. The question is, how do we get there?
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think it's an impossible question. I find for me, my general practice is and I'll probably talk about it more, this idea of cultural humility, understanding what you can understand and knowing what you can't, knowing that someone else's experience is real, tangible, and painful, and for you, there can be compassion, there can be empathy. For me, there often is, and it's painful. And then, if you are the present, and if you are paying attention to them and not yourself, there's a good chance that an opening will be created.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so limited now physically that I can't get there. So that's a frustration for me. So again, I come back to Patti and her children. I mean, I still don't understand this one. We're talking about something, and they're listening to us because they are eavesdroppers. They're born eavesdroppers. And then simultaneously, they both start chanting, "Late stage capitalism, late stage capitalism." What the fuck? It's like, who are these children? And what has been done to them? That they're chanting the truth.
For them.
Thank you for that.
They're chanting the truth, even if they don't entirely understand, nor do I, the reality of late stage capitalism, but that's what it is. And that's a challenge.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Well, I feel like it's capitalism is like this vacuum, right? Like this big suction that's been at the top. And it worked for a while, right? Because the suction was like making the air move and things flow. But as it went on, it just keeps sucking everything up to the top and leaving a vacuum in its wake. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think so.
If I would, sum it up too succinctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so far it sounds like cultural humility, being people who work for liberation, and the upcoming generation have risen to the top so far in our quest to define our visions for a better world.
Yeah. Oh, it's so difficult. I mean, but what I understand is, and Michaela, I know that this is important to you in the climate movement, is as long as we're using a European model led by Europeans, we're probably not going to be successful. That we need the indigenous perspective. We need the indigenous of the people in, South China, South Asia, and it takes energy to do that. So we have to find that energy. I'm going to go cough now. I'll be back in a minute. Do you know, Patti, when you were in these conversations, you're just amazing. Because I think, like me, you listen with your body and you react out of your body. And it's just a beautiful thing to see.
For a long time, I actually thought that I spent most of my time in my head and not very embodied. But through the process of healing over the last few years, for sure, I think I have re-entered my body.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you re-enter your body in these conversations. You actually glow a little bit.
Oh, well.
Giving off light.
Isn't glow another term for when a woman sweats?
No, it's not.
Women don't sweat, they glow.
If you were sweating, I'd say you were sweating. That Michaela can hold a thought for more than 30 seconds is so impressive.
I know.
I can even do it for 31 seconds. So I wanted to respond to what you last said, Jerry, and with this thing about we can't rely on the leadership of Europeans to bring the change that we want, that we have to pay attention, we have to listen to Indigenous people in particular, but other people who have been marginalized. Right. And I just finished reading a book that I want to share with you called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Well, you may have. It's 10 years old. It's written by Charles Eisenstein. And I know you don't read a lot these days, Jerry, but you can get this as an audiobook if you're interested. Anyway, I highly recommend it. And his main part of his message is that we need to change the story we're living. The story we've been living is about capitalism and its attendant qualities, patriarchy, white supremacy, all those things. And it's not just a matter of organizing or presenting arguments verbally, orally, in written form. It's about each of us figuring out how to step out of our old story, which we're all deeply infused with, and start living a new story. Yeah. The kind of story that the three of us are talking about.
Yep.
And so that has to happen both at a very, very personal level, yep, and as it grows, a systemic level. And this is a person, Charles Eisenstein does a lot of workshops and teaching people, and he's done it for years. And one of the things that he thinks he's learned is that the younger generation, and he admits that this is mostly white American kids that he's learned this from, but many of them, among them, he is seeing much more ease in letting go of our culture's old story and stepping into this new story, defining this new story. And it's not something, because I'm not very connected to too many young people, particularly because I'm not a parent, but also I just don't, I don't spend time a lot with a lot of younger people. So this was revelatory to me and very hopeful.
I totally agree with you. All right, and I love that idea. I do feel like I've been seeing that maybe from, I guess, what we would call the millennials, who are about 40 right now, and younger. I see that a lot. I think millennials were the generation that, they played t-ball and everyone got a trophy type group. But I think that sunk in a little bit. It got made fun of in the media. Oh, these millennials, they just expect everything. They've had it so easy. But you know what? I mean, I really think millennials took something from that. They were like, we all win. We all got to play, right? I really think something about that sunk in a way that no one intended.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. At least I like to think that. So I think combining this notion of millennials being the everybody gets a trophy generation with the things you're talking about, it makes me wonder if, well, I guess it puts me in mind of how those same millennials, where everyone gets a trophy, grew up and they realized, but not everyone gets to afford a house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm on the cusp of millennial. I'm what they call an exennial. I'm in that weird little pocket, I guess. And I feel that. I feel like I'm a transitional species. Like we're sitting here hoping that we can solve it and hasten the coming of the end of capitalism, right? But I think it's important too to take heart a little bit, to recognize that, those millennials who are now about to enter an age where they're going to be driving more of the society, they may be carrying some of these ideas at the forefront already. Now, a caveat to that is it makes me think about how the hippies became the yuppies, and that does scare me a little bit.
Yeah.
So, will capitalism have one more go and pull in those millennials and younger who might have seen it different otherwise? I don't know. But it might be good for us to be aware of it.
Youthful ideals have been around a long time. They get eroded, worn away, whatever. But there's also realities. You can't own a house. You don't have a job that makes any sense. You feel economic pressures. That's a real buzz killer. So there are powerful forces that we have to find a way to bridge, take this energy through that transition. In India, in one branch or another, 3 life stages: apprenticeship, householdership, and mentorship. So you learn all the ideals as a young person, then you have to deal with the reality of family and life, and then at the end, moksha, that's the term I was looking for. Then you come back to all those principles from your youth and embody them. But there's this abrasive period in between youth and elderness that's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying I'm difficult?
What did you say?
Are you saying I'm difficult?
Can we talk later?
We almost got in a full fight last night over the word intention
Oh, wow.
and the idea of desire. So,
She's very
more to come.
combative. If you push the wrong button, look out. She's a wild animal, too.
Well, where do you think my children get it
I'm
from,
not
Jerry?
saying, not saying which animal.
I would call that fierceness, and I want to honor it.
Thank you, Michaela.
For those who are watching the film of this, which doesn't exist, I just raised my arms in triumph on behalf of Patti.
And we'll leave it there for today. Thanks for joining us. It's clear that the path to a more compassionate and connected society lies in our collective hands. Let's carry these insights forward, committing ourselves to actions that build bridges and heal divides. We look forward to continuing this conversation in the next 2 episodes from this discussion, where we look deeper into grassroots movements and the role of technology in shaping a better future. I'm Patti Robron, and my co-hosts have been Michaela McCormick and Jerry Atkin. Until next time, keep speaking truth to goodness, because goodness is all around.